Login accepted.
Good morning again. Welcome to this weird presentation. That's going to be a little bit of a rabbit hole, possibly with a happy ending in some ways. My name is Alberto Brandolini, and well, there's a few things that I need to say before getting into this talk. And I've been into domain-driven design since the early days. Basically, I bought a book in 2004 without knowing what was about, and then I fell in love, and I applied this, quite intensively. I'm also in love with the most extreme implementation, like CQRS and event sourcing and event storming on this side. So I trained myself to think in events, and I'm not a diplomatic person, especially when it comes to engineering. Like, I like modeling without trade-offs. Sometimes you have to do trade-offs, but I don't like starting with a trade-off. This also led me to in a different place. Like, I'm running my own company. Like, I didn't want to have trade-offs with my boss, basically. And this gives me a couple of extra leverages here. Like, I might be the business side of our internal conversation. So we have a lot of freedom to experiment. A lot of these stories about the internal software that we are running for running our company. We are writing for running our company. And also the attitude for this internal software is just like we like to eat our own dog food. We don't like bad dog food, so we try to make gourmet stuff, eat it, and run a business on top of it. And this approach, this attitude, was leading me into interesting places, like the first image of this presentation coming from the Spinal Tap movie with the volume selector going to 11, was all about this. If I believe in some principles, let's try to put those principles to 11 and see where this is leading us. I don't need to make trade-off. It might be a radical idea, but I talk with the business, and the business say, great idea, Alberto, let's try. And that's easy. So first little bit of this exploration is the account that wasn't. And the context is we wanted to build a little component dealing with treasury, and treasury implementation for our internal software was very simple. We just needed to have a place to check what was the available cash liquidity in the different accounts. There were not so many, but we needed to know how much money do we have. Something is on PayPal, something is on a traditional bank account, something is on a different currency, and we needed to have the control of this stuff. So I talked with my colleague Andrea, and we start with the first modeling session. We're talking about accounts. So the first idea that popped in our mind was, well, we need an account. And of course, the moment you say, like, we need an account, we have information which are the name of the account or the bank account, some extra meta information might be important, and also the classical operation for an account, deposit and withdraw. And it was clearly the beginning of a rabbit hole, like, why do we really need this? And, well, let me be more explicit. It felt like we were going to, the moment we said, like, oh, we need to keep track of the account, so we need an account class, and then that was the type of operation we had. And then we realized, like, this is not the operation we need. We just need to, we are not withdrawing from the account. This is what we do in the bank. We just need to do something like a register snapshot, like this is what I know is on the bank account today. And eventually, we might want to track operation and use them for reconciliation, and so on. So we have these three ideas: account with the register snapshot and track operation, and account tracker as a name with the same semantic. And each one of them had drawbacks. So the first one looked like this is somebody else's model. It was like looking like first idea, not quite right. Second thing, the second proposal had an inconsistent design, like this is called an account, and the operation I can perform is register snapshot and track operation, which doesn't feel like what you do with an account. And the third thing was more consistent, like, no, this is not an account, it's an account tracker or an account proxy or an account mirror. We tried quite a few names, and that was actually the problem, like, this was not a domain name. We were guessing, we were inventing, and naming things is one of the hardest problems in software development. But at least it was semantically consistent with, we have a tracker, and with the tracker, I register a snapshot, and I track an operation. Well, looks like it's consistent in its semantic. And if you are a little bit into domain-driven design, this pain in naming is exactly the essence of domain-driven design. And we started realizing that we were basically thinking at two levels. So there was a set of operations, like the account as a name with the register snapshot and track operation, that were consistent with the user's expectation. And the other model, the account tracker, was more coherent with semantics. And but it was just not what we wanted to show, because then the users say, why do I need to know about what an account tracker is? And the point is, you probably don't, but the other important thing that started to emerge, like, there is this line that separates the visibility of information from what we show and what we implement instead. And if you know a little bit about domain-driven design, about just a hand-raising moment, like who is familiar with domain-driven design in this room, relatively? Okay, you my crew, thank you. And I felt like this was blasphemous, like, well, ubiquitous language, speaking the language of the domain expert was one of the key foundations, and here we were feeling like we were cheating on the expert, even if the expert were in fact us again. Like, we wanted to call it an account, but didn't want to call it an account at the code level. So we felt weird. And the realization was, well, we can just think about the labels instead. Just put it on the front end, you call it an account, and then implementation is an account tracker. Am I cheating? Yes, but domain-driven design doesn't say anything about front end and user experience, so maybe it could work this way. The other thing that was interesting for us was why did we take the first idea? Why did we start with the wrong design? I mean, we were seasoned developers, like, but the moment somebody mentioned an account, we went full scale into having an account with name, current balance, deposit, and withdraw. And the reason was not that we were idiots, it was that we were humans. And if you haven't read this book from Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, one of my favorite books since 10 years now, I still strongly recommend. It just gives you a lot of perspective about biases. And in this case, there was something like a Pavlovian reaction, like somebody said account, oh, we need an account. And I know what an account is. I had so many examples of accounts in the past, so let's go with deposit and withdraw, which is a dumb idea, but it was popping into our brain so quickly. And put in another way, we have a backdoor in our brain that allows cool examples to bypass validation. Looked like a good idea, let's go this way. And well, if you learn not domain-driven design, object-oriented, the way we learn in school and university, then probably in your first project we're doing the person class and having the customer inherit and all of this stuff. And I'm so glad we didn't have to implement the zoos so that we could separate mammals from birds and then have the ostrich class or anything like this. The other thing is, yeah, please, you might have a backdoor also for example, so take this talk with a little bit of distance. Second little story, actually that's an interlude. That is coming from another project, but it had was leading us to interesting information. And the context, it was a long-lasting project. It started actually 4 years ago now in a large organization, a very complex domain, very specific jargon, so many conversations with the expert. We started with the big picture in a storming, then we ran another big picture 2 years later to restart again when the political situation was different. We talked with many people, interviewed, took notes, and so on. Also, the thing that was really interesting, I had the chance to get back on the company wiki and see the glossary we were writing at the beginning of the project. And a lot of good people were in the team, people with a very good domain-driven design background, good attitude, and when looking at this wiki page with the dictionary, I realized, and I haven't been looking to this in quite a few years, and then the revelation was something kind of disappointing. And basically, every single term coming from marketing was crap. Was not a single word that was leading the design in the right direction. I mean, not even one. Oh, this, and everybody was telling us, oh, this is so new, this is completely different, that's an entirely different concept. And we were biased to follow, and whenever we followed that information, we were going into horrible design. So there's something that was weird in our attitude as little puppies learning from the expert in domain-driven design, just like I will follow you, whatever you are saying, like you know the business, I'm here to learn, and I have these big puppy eyes of curiosity, but the experts sometimes, they have no clue where they are going. They are telling us not the real world, they are telling us their understanding of the real world. Can we trust it unconditionally? Probably not. So not every information from the expert is suitable to become a part of domain model. We need to make selection, we need to make filtering, we need to make checking assumption, and so on. Was another scenario interesting inside this domain area was something about travel reservation. And so we had a room that could be reserved. And they have a very fancy way to describe it. But in practice, it was different variations of deferred assignment. Like sometimes you can book a room and say, like, I want to have the imperial suite now. Well, sometimes you might just, book a room, and then, the hotel might give you the best available room for the price you paid, given the moment you arrive in the hotel. And of course, the rooms can also be sold with extra services, like a bottle of champagne and stuff. Like the moment you enter the luxury market, you see weird things, which are normally not in our travel booking. And but this scenario was giving us fancy names for combination of services. And the thing that was really weird, they were describing ideas like all-inclusive and all door-to-door and any other type of services like entirely new concept. We felt like we should put this stuff inside the domain, but after a while we realized you're just selling bundles. You're just selling combination of things together, and you're giving them a fancy name. Nobody could admit that. Oh, no, we're doing something completely different. We are a luxury company. We're doing something more sophisticated. It's not a bundle. Amazon does bundle. We are in the premium market, and so on. I mean, in a way, they were honest. They were marketing people. They needed to believe what they were saying, but we shouldn't believe what they were saying. And the thing that was popping up at our design level, like, it was not a situation where sometimes you're just selling the room and sometimes you're selling the room plus extra services. Maybe you're always selling a bundle. Sometimes this bundle is just only the room. And this little approach of injecting complexity in was actually making everything simpler. Like you always have as a bundle, sometimes it's simpler. Not a single domain expert was leading us in this direction. Okay, and The other part was we started with the flagged dictionary, collecting all the terms from the experts, and only later we started to work into separating bounded context to have local dictionaries a little bit more consistent. And this is just to say that, well, a dictionary looks like a harmless tool, but in fact might force people to think that we are talking about the same thing while we are not. And yeah, make sure a dictionary reflects your bounded context. That's a kind of good recommendation. We improved a lot from those days. The other problem that we faced in this scenario was actually even scarier. And I suppose everybody here had the taste of it, which is when you're talking with experts that were grown on the legacy software, they were leading us into rebuilding the legacy because that's what they knew. And we're talking with some people, most of their domain expertise was coming from the legacy software. It was not exactly the most usable tool. And even worse, the less usable it is, the more you have to invest in learning it, and the more you consider this knowledge as precious, so you don't want to lose it, and you're basically dooming the next software to look like the old one. And that was one of the most horrible feeling for a domain-driven practitioner in kind of horrible stuff. Let's move on. Let's get back to the smaller scenario of my young company. And the scenario here is where we wanted to develop something more sophisticated, but we are a small company and we didn't want to do mistakes. Let's get into action. The first building block of our idea was, work closely following the information about bounded context. A bounded context can be defined as a limit of applicability of a model or as a unit of language consistency. The terms have the same meaning in a given bubble. And as a design tool, the idea is to have a model which is tailored for a specific purpose. All very good, but not exactly actionable. It's a pretty good definition, but okay, how do I find bounded context? That becomes kind of hard. The thing is, purpose is not very actionable, and then you have to use proxies instead. Like maybe it's the legacy software giving you some extra bits of information. Maybe it's the team structure. Maybe it's the subdomains. Maybe the technology used. Maybe the people working on this. Maybe the organization department. The thing is, each one of these proxies can work or not, and their viability could be subject to perturbation. Like, for example, it's kind of useful use a proxy, the department structure as a proxy information in a large company. In a small company, this doesn't make any sense. We are a company of 5 people, and we're dealing with 15, 20, or even more bounded context. So looking at the people structure is totally pointless. While in very, very large organization, you might even have duplication of departments and so on. Well, of course, if you run workshops like event storming, you might see a few signals during the workshop, and this was helping us. Yeah, the story is you don't have the same indicators everywhere. So the other driver in small organization is not only the team department but not relevant, it's all the forces were driving towards a monolith. Like the way we were talking, the fact that we were having a conversation talking about many things with the same people, we felt the need to distinguish items and not realizing we were talking 3, 4 different languages at the same time. And so we were working a little bit more on the idea of purposes, which was the definition but not so actionable, and well, let's use business lines as well. And we wanted to avoid writing our software like a beginning of a big house of mud. Maybe beautiful, but not exactly what we want it to be. So in the small scale, the forces that we have to play is just we were working on a single database, and a single database, you cannot have tables with duplicated names. So the idea of having 2 customers doesn't happen. You have a force that is telling you you need to have distinct stuff or stuff with a complicated name. If you have a single project in the IDE, well, the name duplication is going to be a pain in the ass. So you want to do something different to make sure you're not using the wrong class or injecting dependencies just because you're typing fast. And also, but the mental model of the people, if you have a small team jumping from one problem in one bounded context to one problem in another one, is not always easy. So it does help if you have a map, if you can point to different bubbles, but the pressure is there. Still, it was my company, and I didn't want to go into monolith, so that was my attitude, and I wanted to design stuff that could grow right, because then I'm eating my dog food, and my dog food is crap, and how can I go consulting anywhere if I can't do things right? So that was our challenge. And looking about bounded context and separation, one of the first questions was actually, is training a bounded context? Initially it looked like, because we have trainings, and then we have a model for marketing and the planning, and we have, of course, billing, sales. We also do consulting, so training is different from consulting. But we also have logistics and webinars, and it looked okay-ish. But then we started to feel like, no, we are mixing apples and oranges here. There's something which is not exactly right. So we try to do something different. We try to go to 11, and we try to be more explicit into separation on purpose. We're still a small company, so we went logical separation only. We didn't go microservices, and of course, see what happens if something goes wrong. We can still revert. And one of the drivers was actually this asymmetry, this property of software that mixing is still cheaper than splitting. And if you have been playing with Lego, you know this property. It takes 2 seconds to mix 2 bottles of Lego. It takes 30 minutes to separate this. If you have a database and if you grant access to many people, it takes, very short time to add the table. It might take weeks to delete a table because you need to check that nobody's using it, and this takes time. So you have exactly the same asymmetry. But it's our dog food, and, well, let's try to make it good. So this was the initial idea. Let's try to map the business lines first, and, obviously in the large, our responsibility in the small. In a single company, we were actually doing public training, private training, consulting, public speaking, and software delivery with a dedicated project, and also business line for sponsorship that doesn't make money, but is a cost center. We also organize meetups for free, but still is a different flow. And we also started organizing conferences and selling and printing books. So, still 6 people making our life complicated, but okay, that's good for the enterprise as well. Then we started developing, cutting into phases, and like strategy, product design, planning, marketing, and sales. Not every flow has all the phases, and the phases, they might look like a little bit of a magician trick here, like where are the phases coming from? And I would say I've been exploring businesses for 10 years on paper rolls. There are some redundant stuff. Sorry, not redundant, recurring. And okay, let's use it. And there's something that looks like a decent archetype, and maybe it's wrong, but who cares? And this is how the map started to look like. And there's something interesting here, like the public training part is the one that has the more maturity, and we have a model for scouting, the deals with the trainers, an area for content design and for designing pricing, date picking, newsletter for the marketing side, and so on. And there's also a bubble later on for logistics, like no matter if you're traveling for a private class or for a public training or for a public speaking, we still need to go travel arrangement, and that's more or less the same. While billing happens in quite a few of these bubbles, and then at the end, there's something like global financial analysis and forecast, which is by definition for every business line. Of course, then we are working on adapters because the forecast needs specific stuff from the different business lines. But okay, this is getting cleaner, and we kind of like it. And we started to realize that which were the commonalities between some areas. Some areas were only common between 2 or 3 business lines. Other areas were more independent. And there were advantages for some commonalities and disadvantages in some other times. And okay, this map was actually getting really valuable. The other part that was interesting, if you take one single business line, is exactly value creation network. It was interesting to see that in some cases, the order of the steps was different. So this was not a rigid structure. But in terms of organizing, yeah, worked okay. And a single flow looked like what you can get out of an event storming exploration. Only here we needed something larger. And we liked it. In terms of dog food, that was working really well. So we kept it. Then, in terms of modeling our flows, and wanted to be radical about it, we opened a different type of rabbit hole. We wanted to stick to this pattern, which is called a draft executable tracking, which is basically a recurring combination of 3 different types of bounded context. So a draft model to the left is a place where you might be working, maybe collaborating with some people on an artifact which is not completely specified. So in our scenario, it might be the structure of a training which is not ready, or the content, something that you share with your colleagues, they are commenting, they are changing, you're tweaking the duration, you're adding one more session, all of this stuff. You play with this, you don't have so much need for transactional consistency, and you might also sometimes play getters and setters or stuff at very low level because you're just changing stuff till it's ready. Then there is usually a validation barrier. You don't plan a training class till I realize I can make an echo with my arm. That's an interesting sound effect. You cannot schedule a training class if you don't have the duration, but you can have a training class without the duration set in the draft model for a while. Maybe it's going to take a couple of weeks to decide this is going to be a 2-day class or a 3-day class. And the executable is where action is happening in a more transactional way. You want predictable outcome, you want deterministic behavior, and transaction consistency. And then you usually have a model where you basically just collect data and you might use it as a source for more destination. The interesting part of this pattern is just the language is the same. You think like you're talking about the same thing. You have a training in the draft and a training in the executable and the training in the tracking, but the behavior is different. So maybe you need a different model, a different implementation style. And this is the grammar that I'm going to use in the next diagrams. So we wanted to apply this pattern, and we're going to use read model is the information needed to decide. We're going to talk about the aggregate as a unit of transactional consistency. We're going to start visualizing the events, and then the policy will be the React container of reactive logic. But let's try to put in a structure what was the idea for organizing a public workshop. So we had these classes or aggregates that could be inside our a planning bubble, which is what we need to fix date on a calendar. We need the sales bubble. We are selling tickets, so that's important. We had an inventory of the available seats for a training. We also need the logistic bubble, and we wanted to have something really separated. In the logistics, we needed to know about the printables, maybe certificates, and also the stuff about travel, venue booking, and so on. So let me be a little bit more explicit. We have, in the public event, we can schedule, confirm, and cancel at the planning level. On the sales level, we can open sales, we can purchase a ticket, and we can close the sales. And at the inventory level or registration level, we can open the registration, we can register and cancel an attendee and close the registration. So kind of nested bubble. Looks like over-designed a little, but felt okay. And the policy here was just like the moment we have an event ready on the left, we could coordinate the activation on 3 bubbles. We can fix a date, we can decide whether to open the sale and to open the registration. And the policy was taking care about the coordination. Then, of course, we needed a few more policies to connect the other part. Like whenever a purchase was started, it was happening on a different website, we needed to reserve the ticket. When the purchase was completed, okay, the ticket is now assigned to you. While if you have a ticket, then there is a reservation for you. So there's a lot of coordination happening, and there's also a lot of mess on this diagram. That's why we need more space for event storming, by the way. The other part that was interesting is all of this information was actually visible in a read model on the tracking. So we had a single page where everything was visible without knowing that was a result of many different building blocks. Okay, all good. Not exactly. There were a couple of horrible names, like calling an aggregate public event. You have an event which is probably a public class, no, so that's kind of bad. And also open event for the inventory, that's still another bad name. Still, we didn't have a good concept, and the thing that happened, the expert was still using very specific names when describing the situation. We are opening the registration for the meetup, or we are opening the registration for the training. They didn't have the abstraction, but talking about their model was not leading us anywhere. The second thing that was making us feeling a little guilty was we have a double capacity. We have a capacity for tickets and a capacity for seats. Do we need this? I mean, it's something that airline companies are doing, but also the travel industry is doing. Like, do we need it too? And yes, there was a voice telling like something like, "Well, you aren't gonna need it. You don't need this complexity," or "Yeah, keep it simple, stupid." And the thing for us was we just were looking to a single use case, and this was not enough. If you just look at a single scenario, well, then going for the simple implementation is the most obvious choice. But this was our core, this was our business, and we wanted to have something good and flexible. So we started to see what happens if you organize private trainings using this model. And something started to pop up, like we needed to have a new aggregate fixing the deal. The negotiation for a private class is happening directly with the customer, and we are not selling tickets. We're just negotiating 3-day on the customer facility, and somebody's traveling there. So we need to have a deal signed, but when it comes to the registering people, we still want to know who's taking the class, because yeah, maybe we need to give them some certificates, or we need to track that they participated, or we need to invite them on a Slack channel or something. We needed a new policy, like private training coordination policy, and a little extra event. Okay, the thing that is really relevant, we didn't open the other boxes. We added new boxes, and we composed new behavior. Then we went online training instead of physical. Okay, the public online training policy was coordinating something different because we were having the idea of online session for the delivery that was coordinating a Zoom calendar and a Google calendar, and we needed this new policy. But still, we didn't open the existing boxes. Oh, we started to like it. And in general, during this discussion, we had to play with this stressor, business-driven. By the way, this is also my trick to recommend you to have a look at residuality theory from Barry O'Reilly. This book just came out a few weeks ago. And we were stressing our business with this idea, can I have this without that? Can I have reservation without a ticket? Oh, yes, that's exactly what we do in a private training. Is this the exception or the rule, like it happened with the bundle? Or can I have this and that, like a ticket and a reservation? Oh, yes, because this will allow me to sell tickets on different platforms or to have a little bit more flexibility on the market. Then we went modeling with let's try online private. And online private was we just needed a new specific policy, and that's it. We had all the building blocks. And what we observed was every single variation we injected in the system, every single business option had the declining cost of new option. And it also made us feel like, but now we can do hybrid trainings, something which is, 2 days on site and then one remote session a couple of weeks later. We can sell combo tickets because the thing is decoupled and it's not going to be a pain. We can have composite events and also, resellers, partners, and stuff, an extra type of services. And that was feeling like good. We have flexibility in the model, and this is opening for business opportunity. The overall scenario was we're fighting with top-down forces. We are interpreting top-down forces like interacting with domain experts, detecting business light, and then phases and archetypes. That was the driver from the business. But also, we were putting bottom-up forces from the table. We were detecting interesting building blocks, types. We were making them self. This was giving us confidence. This was giving us ideas for improving the business. One little trick about, playing with the DDD building blocks at the value object level, we had this idea of session layout. So something really stupid. At the beginning was like that we just needed the duration, but then the moment we started dealing with online event, we realized no, our model was not sophisticated enough. In-person events, they are consecutive days, and online events, they might not. So we started sketching a possible idea about the session layout. And duration, we had the session layout was the whole structure of, we had 3 sessions, each one starting from 9:30 to 12:30, plus there is a tail on the last one. Okay, that's more or less a layout of a training. And it turns out that we needed 2 very similar models, but not quite the same. So we had a session plan on the design phase, something that didn't have a date, while we needed to have the scheduled version or the instantiated version on this one, saying on May 17th, starting on that, we have a session. That was the information we needed to talk with Zoom, Google Calendar, and so on. So the thing is, this sophisticated model was not for reuse, but was for business composability and started feeling right. Having a robust model was giving more business opportunity. And how much of this journey can involve the domain expert? Yeah, it depends. What is the problem with this pattern of draft, executable, and so on? It's that if you don't know that the pattern is there, It's very hard to detect. Like in the bottom, in red, we have the nouns that we can use, and they are more or less the same. We have a session type, and a duration, but the verbs on the top are really different. Like in the draft, we can adjust, propose, comment, extend a session, while in the executable, we just schedule, start, cancel, join, terminate, and so on. The other part is something is visible to the users, and maybe value objects are part of the thing that we can discuss with the user, but other things are our responsibility. We shouldn't discuss everything with the expert. The final trick, the thing that you're gonna hate me for, is this one. State as an illusion. Once again, we are little puppies talking with the domain expert, and the domain expert tell us something like, if I need to manage trainings, I need to see stuff like this. Like I need to see, well, how many tickets we sold, how many days till the deadline, and the decision is just a kind of binary. Should I confirm the class or should I retire the class? If you don't sell enough, retire. That's a go. And the model they wanted to see was something like this. This is what we sketched. Like, it starts in a stealth mode. We have a training which is not public yet. The moment it goes public, it becomes unconfirmed because we don't have enough registration. The more you register, you get to a confirmed state. Somebody's going to deciding this. And then, if the training is confirmed, it will be running at the given day. And after the train is completed, could be labeled as passed, and then, yeah, end of the story. Is it making sense? No. This is what users want to see, and then we were realizing, no, that's an illusion, and in fact, we were having not that state machine that was absolutely plausible, but there were 3 independent state machines under the hood. So one that has to do with planning, that was in unconfirmed, confirmed, and cancelled. That's what I do with a calendar date. There was something that was that has a different actor, like customers. Every single ticket, I can keep the registration open and then closed. There's a business decision to confirm the class, and also time is telling me if the class is future, running, or past. And I can show you everything, but they didn't want to see this. They still wanted to see the state machine they were declaring. Okay, and so we built that state machine as a combination of the 3 running state machines. So the user-perceived state machine was something like a Cartesian combination of these things. So at the sales event and time, the result was sales are closed, event is unconfirmed, time is future. Okay, we are in stealth mode. Confirmed, if that's okay, cancelled. Well, this is kind of easy. If the sales are opened and unconfirmed, that's what we want to see. The things start to get interesting. If the sales are open for an event which is cancelled, the time is future, but this is something that shouldn't happen. Okay, so that's something that we should detect or forbid. And if the sales are closed and the event is unconfirmed, and the time is present, there's something wrong. Somebody forgot to do something. Sales is closed, the event is confirmed and present. Well, it's running. Sales closed, event is cancelled. Time is present. Well, okay, that's time to have a drink about the possibilities that we lost. Sales are open. The event is present. There's something wrong, or maybe it can even be a different business opportunity, something like a rolling cohort that he might join even if the event is started. So it might be a possibility. So what it was interesting for us, the moment we started looking at all the possible combination, something were stated should never happen, others were possible idea for a different business implementation. And yep, we had these surprise states. But the temptation was still but you told me to do this, so I can give you what you want and couple everything in the process. And we decided not to. We decided to keep the thing visible, but still provide what you wanted, knowing that it was a magician trick under the hood. The other trick that we played, it was helping us to detect stuff, was actually spicing up the model. So the same diagram, like, wait a minute, there's something that is not visible in the state diagram, which is the people working on that area. And it was actually the staff person and the caller was helping me to say, like, they can publish and cancel. This is what those people are doing. And while the registration comes from the customer side and the shift from confirmed to running to passed is coming from time. So these signals were already there, but well, we were not looking in this direction. Final idea, we were not going radical with this new idea, but coming straight from the domain modeling Whirlpool from Eric Evans, we had more than one option. This was kind of radical. We know we could go conservative anyway. And even more, that part of doing modeling lo-fi, this was giving us a few more options. What if we do this, and then we move this, and so on? This was actually kind of efficient. Especially when dealing with online modeling tools, Miro or Lucidchart or the stuff, like, keep in mind that a lot of your brain will be used for keeping the model tidy, but sometimes you need to be in a place where you're thinking dirty first. And of course, you cannot do all of these experiments. We have a very strong test suite making you feel safe. The final consideration about this modeling journey was that we could apply different style. Like in the executable part, this was where thinking event sourcing and CQRS was playing very, very well. In this area, that was totally okay. While trying to do event sourcing on the draft model to the left was kind of overkill. You might go in this area only if you have a very important audit, like who decided this pricing strategy or who decided this title, when did this happen. If you need to track, then event sourcing will give you some extra information. But in terms of designing in event sourcing, well, that might be a little bit trickier. And talking about the tracking model, it started like just the read model. Then it started to look like a read model with properties or something that were exactly showing the information needed for the customer or for the user. So yeah, pick the right tool for the job. And it looked like, okay, this way the system could actually be flexible and it's not collapsing under its weight. I would say, I think the most important part of this design that we applied, we are not reopening classes. We are not doing refactoring on changes inside the classes. Most of the time, we are just adding new bricks, but the old ones are not changed that much. Still, the temptation is still there. Still, as a small company, those boundaries were lightweight. We were not going physical separation. That was too much. Now we are probably going to do it for a different set of reasons, just for experimenting, basically. But it was kind of working well, even with some little limitation. Time to wrap up. The thing that was interesting was realizing how much the brain will keep fooling us. Like if you mention the class account and if you have already passed examples of implementation, there's some little neuron in your brain saying like, yeah, I can do it. That's easy. I will do it. And that might be the wrong idea. And they're nudging you to repeat past errors. And the domain expert can be trusted, but only to a given extent, because this is what domain expert will tell you in many places. They are not going to suggest you to go radical redesign. They might just tell you, why don't you patch the legacy? So sometimes, instead of following the domain expert, if you see the possibility and if you have a running prototype showing it, maybe you got to be the one pulling and not the one following. The other part is the integrity of your design, the robustness and the flexibility is a business value. It's not just architecture. Like here, I was wearing two hats. Like I was an architect happy about the design of the software, but I was also a business person happy about the flexibility that the software was providing for new business adventures. So this is important. But when talking with external domain experts, you can't outsource this. If you do what they're telling you, your architecture will be crap. I don't know how, any other way to say it. The other part is there are tricks that you can use to start clean. There are tendencies to go into a big bowl of mud, but if you try to have, especially the bounded context separation, clean from the very beginning, that's working pretty well. Give yourself more than one alternative. If you just start with your first idea, which might be the dumb one, okay, you're building your trap step by step. But if you have the design challenge, well, I need 2 or 3 options, then I want to choose. And not everything needs to be discussed with the domain expert. There's something that needs to be visible, commands, labeling, intention, read model to make decision, policies that might be the glue between the RS, UI, but some other stuff like the actual commands, the aggregates, and so on, that's your territory. And business composability is business confidence. It's model confidence, and that's actually a very, very valuable tool. And if you can build your model given this type of option, that's way more important than code reuse. It's just like business options, and I like it a lot more. That's all I wanted to say. So thank you for being here. Forgive me for my little minute overrun. And yes, if you want to know a little bit more, yeah, probably our blog on Advanced Coperta and my blog on Medium might be the good sources for information. Thank you for your time. I'm going to be around here for questions if you want. Not now because I feel like I'm late and I need to leave the stage free for the next one. Thank you.